Workplace wellbeing is a subject that's sometimes overlooked when running a business. How does your colleagues' wellbeing help strengthen your organisation? Apart from being known as a world-class visitor attraction, Blenheim's strong reputation as a workplace wellbeing champion is what undoubtedly gives them the edge in staff satisfaction and performance. What does it feel like to work for a business that keeps wellbeing at the forefront of all they do?
I've been working at Blenheim for 14 or 15 years, and this is a family. Because it's owned by a family, there is an amazing regard for its staff as being family, and that's how I feel about the place.
It's different because most companies will see you as an asset, not as a human, and they will push you, and then once they think that asset is burnt out, get another person in. Here, there were lots of people, and there still are lots of people who've been here for many, many, many years, and I think that's a good sign that it's a good place to work, really.
Being a very community-oriented business, how has Blenheim Palace supported their local community during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Dudley, the general manager, got in contact with these local charities and then came up with a plan and then put it forward, I believe, to the palace. And obviously the palace, well, great idea. We got these kitchens just sat here doing nothing. And we had some resource, some food stock. Obviously some items are less perishable than others. So, might as well put to use. We had freezers full of food. So obviously we'd make on a Wednesday, we'd go and pick up the food. They would make food drops to these local families. But yeah, it was enjoyable to do, because obviously when I'm at home not cooking, you do get a bit of a twitch, and it was my harshest critics, my family, so it was nice to cook for people to be a bit more appreciative of my food, if I'm honest. So yeah, it was nice, because it's that you don't do it for yourself, you do it to make others feel good, but you do get a good feeling out of it. It's like you don't do it selfishly, but you do get a good feeling. And the positive feedback we had is definitely something I would like to continue. Really get a community around Woodstock, around Blenheim. When a site like this, I think it's important that we do give something to the community. Especially you don't actually realise how many unfortunate people there are until you scratch the surface, really.
Blenheim's senior staff do a lot of work to provide tools and services to support their employees with any wellbeing issues, such as free counselling support and mental health champions within the business who are trained in mental health first aid.
So as a mental health champion, I am there for anybody who wants to talk to me about anything at any time, because I know myself what it's like to go through challenges mentally. It's horrendous. And Blenheim actually put me on a really, really good course a few weeks ago with Mind, which just basically identifies all the different problems that people do have, especially during these times of lockdown and not being able to go to work and just being on their own at home. So yeah, Blenheim has been a really great support to me, and also is supportive of other people who are still at home and are on furlough and can't actually come to work. It's really difficult, really difficult. Dominic was the first person to start sending out video messages, and I remember watching the first one that Dom sent out, and immediately afterwards I sent him a message basically going thumbs up, because it looked like he was there to support us, and so I just wanted to make sure that he realised that we're there to support him as well, because it's not easy for him at all. So there was also a weekly Flagstaff update, and in the Flagstaff updates, somebody from Blenheim who was working here would send us a little video of how they're feeling, what's going on the estate, and also just an update of how the business is doing. So that was really good, just to keep in touch with everybody, yeah.
We're back live in the Orangery. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, which Rob expertly put together with the help of your colleagues Alan and Lorna. You've not seen it yet, so we'll have to tell you what they said.
But they are great exemplars of the best of Blenheim. Lorna has been non-stop supporting her team, and she's come back and done so many different jobs compared to what she's used to, just to be part of it. And Alan's been part of an amazing effort to feed vulnerable families in Barton right through the epidemic. In many cases, taking food in from food banks, and then we get it out and distributed, and he cooks it all. So it's been great to see them. So many people have engaged in that kind of thing just because they could.
He made the comment in the video that he gets a lot more thanks for the food that he delivers to Barton than he does from his own family at home. And Lorna also made reference to some video messages that you put out and she referenced, it's nice, it was great of you how you kept in contact with your 400 plus team.
Well, I think this is one of the big things that won't change. I mean, we always try to communicate with our teams, but it's very easy to settle into a rut. And I used to go around roughly every 4 months to each team, and we'd talk for an hour or so, and they'd ask loads of questions, and we'd send out a monthly email, and that was kind of it. But people said they liked it, so that was fine. Of course, that all went out of the window, and we had to try and think of every way to communicate like news and worries and solutions, and try to keep it uplifting messages, but also the one-on-one communication to find out who is the person perched on the end of the bed, who is most vulnerable. And I was fascinated actually by us talking to a law firm we use in London, and like most city centre law firms in London, not cheap. Law firms.
They're local.
Oh, well, there's that. Law firms, typically bill by the 6 minutes or something, so they know the value of their time. And quite early on in the crisis, talking to one of their partners, they had set up systems. They have an awful lot of young staff who've come out of university and law school and are in the smallest room you could imagine when they're at home. It's a studio flat, or it's a one room in a shared house, and they are young. And they're probably now away from the supportive environment of the family and university in a new environment. And this law firm was seriously worried about these staff. And so every partner, it was set up as a kind of systemized thing. They had to spend an hour and a half of every single day in Zoom calls to their staff below them, checking in on them, making sure that it was nothing more than daily contact. They had proper human contact, because they were really worried about what these young, isolated staff, the perfect profile for a horrible ending, really, if they get too isolated. They were really, really worried about it, and they set it up so every single day, every partner had to do that. And their charge out rate is 500 quid an hour, and they're doing an hour and a half of this a day, so that's 750 quid a day, or just under 4,000 a week, or around £200,000 a year. And there's something, it's not just the accountant in me. We don't cost or budget or plan the value of these communications and that time investment in particular. And when you don't build it into the plan that way, often it falls away. It doesn't really happen. You delegate it to marketing or HR or something. And I'm there. They already were a great firm, but I was hearing just last week what had happened to their employee engagement and employee happiness scores, which they do measure, over the COVID period. It's actually gone up. Despite all the horror that was going on around them, they'd never had these young staff at this vital, vulnerable, but also precious early part of their career and life, felt valued in a way they never had before. And when you value stuff like that, you put a pound or a time value on it, you can build it into your plans going forward. And from our point of view, we've done loads of stuff, lots of video messages, lots of all staff online Q&As, over GoToMeeting and Zoom and things like that. An awful lot more manager to direct reports communication, whether that's going for distance walks in the park, which is a lovely thing we can do here. It's not so easy for other people. So much sustained effort has gone into that, and we constantly refine, including, and I don't want to give anyone heart attacks now, but we realised that some staff weren't able to get to the video Q&As because of childcare commitments. It was just, we do them at the end of the day, and kids are coming from school now and are eating dinner. So of course we learnt to record them, except it turned out GoToMeeting didn't save the ruddy things anywhere that I could find, so we lost the entire first one. that way. But luckily, 60 or so staff had managed to attend and see it. So we're learning all the time, but that comms is crucial. And we always beat ourselves up on this. You always feel you don't do enough, but actually the number of staff who have positively commented to us about whether it's the online quizzes and that kind of thing, or the challenges and that, they see that we have made an extraordinary effort to keep the community together. And then there's another facet. So comms is important, but another facet we've learned is the breaking down of barriers that's come about through coronavirus. And again, for ages, staff have been saying in their feedback to us that they feel there are too many silos at Blenheim. Blenheim's very prone to this. With the best will in the world, if you've got a team of gamekeepers and a team of digital marketers, they don't have a lot in common. And they work in totally different places. They may be inside our 2,000 acres, but they don't spend a lot of time together. And so it's often been flagged up that teams feel they're not understood by another team, or they don't get the help they really should have from another team, or they just don't know what they're doing. But as we had to lock down the site and keep the staff number originally to a very small number, all those barriers had to drop. People just had to turn their hands to whatever job was needed. And as we started to bring staff back, as we had furlough, we started rotating staff to give people a break, and then we had flexible furlough where people could come in part-time. People came in to the jobs that needed doing, which often bore zero relation to what they were doing before. And the fascinating thing for me is not that our staff put their hands up for that. It's not that they did a good job. It's that they, in most cases, absolutely loved it. And that change to pull them out of the office and have them on the gates talking to visitors and reassuring them about the safety precautions on site, or handling customer service calls, or doing HR to support other teams, they absolutely relish this. And I think there's a lesson in there we have to learn, not just about comms, but about changing the environment around people, letting people do different things. We all go down this path of specialisation, that if you do payroll, then you spend your entire time doing payroll. It turned out that the people doing payroll had so much more to give and got so much from it. And everyone else has loved seeing my assistant on the gates, or Alan driving a van to deliver stuff into Barton for families. And that's been our gamekeepers doing lambing and dry stone walling and going to help manage the crowds at Salon Privé. So that's been that. If it goes to Wellbeing, we've done the comms bit, and we've learned so much more about breaking out of the normal silos and routines and using new tech and just celebrating the precious time we can spend together. We've had the breakdown of silos that I hope will never feature in an employee survey again, but that will only be the case if we can find a way to build that into the new normal. So I'm really excited about that. The final thing that goes to Wellbeing that we've really learnt through this crisis is we've often talked about the importance of purpose in our business, and that hasn't diminished at all. I think we've tried very hard to keep executing on our purpose to be the lifeblood of the local economy, to enhance the lives of local people, to share and protect this place. And I won't bore you with all the stuff that we've got doing on our 10 goals. But not everyone truly engages. I might want to kid you that everyone gets excited when I talk about purpose, but you know what? We've got 400 employees here at the moment. Some people are really, really engaged. Some people go, that's lovely to hear. I kind of like the fact Blenheim does this stuff, but I just want to do my job. Suddenly this has been overtaken temporarily by a new shared purpose, a kind of survival purpose, a kind of both a feeling that Blenheim should open up and welcome people to keep the public sane, but also, let's be honest, like any other business around here, we're in a fight for our lives. Our revenues went to zero. You can't employ many people on a revenue base of zero. And seeing how the whole community of Blenheim came together in a fight to protect each other, everybody taking pay cuts, everybody just doing whatever job was needed, and to hell with what their employment contract said. everybody doing whatever it took to attract visitors in, to make events work, people supporting each other, people cutting costs imaginatively from every place they could, figuring out new, more efficient ways to do things for the future. And we were nowhere near the end of this, but this shared fight is one that collectively we feel we're going to make it. We're on the cusp of winning, and while there's still a long, slow climb to go, we can see that we've got the strength together to make it. And I think people at Blenheim have become very proud of that, and we've united people in one sort of shared purpose about taking care of each other. And there's a real pride that we've not had to make mass compulsory redundancies. And it's not because our pockets were so deep we didn't need to. It's because we fought for every bit of relationship building, of revenue, of support of the public. We fought for each other. And, I'm truly proud of that. And I think this will be a defining struggle for people. I think those of us who work through this period will always remember this period and how it brought people together. And people talk about, will we be back to the old normal, or is there a new normal? In terms of well-being for our employees, the way we communicate will be forever different. The way we broke down barriers and supported each other will never be forgotten. We can't unlearn that stuff. It's a better way of doing stuff, and it had a really positive impact on employee well-being. Then that final bit about, even if you didn't buy into our passion about truly affordable housing or boosting the local economy or training young people or whatever, people know they shared this moment together, and they will know that we got through it and we protected each other. And I think that will go into the corporate psyche, not just of Blenheim, but of all sorts of organisations. The way your team came together for the B4 conference and reinvent it from scratch, the way you've created B41, that changes your team forever, and it changes the way they look at themselves and they look at each other. And they know they fought their way through this. And I think it's amazing what you guys have been doing too. And I talk about what other businesses have done for us. And I think that's the next challenge is we manage to take care of each other. But there are some businesses out there who took care of their business partners too and found ways to do that. And you guys are a wonderful example of that. And there are other examples we've come across. And there will be a second wave, and there may be even some kind of third wave before vaccinations out there widespread. We want to make sure that we live up to the best of what we've seen outside, that we support you as much as you've supported us, and that's true of other relationships too. And our staff want us to do that. They've seen how they've been supported, whether it's by Joe Wicks or anybody else, and they've got the confidence to know they can make a difference and contribute too. So these things, I think, they're the lessons we've taken away about employee well-being as well as business strength. And we will not unlearn what we've learnt, and we mustn't do.
I appreciate all the kind words, and it goes without saying that we're very grateful to you, everybody at Blenheim, for supporting us, giving us this opportunity. I mean, to have this platform to launch B41 is incredible. When you talk about your staff, Dominic, we've always talked about the people that you employ, and you've often told me that you've had members of staff coming to you, choosing you over other potential job offers, which financially were more rewarding. But to actually work here, they knew that they would have a more fulfilling experience, and obviously that stood you in good stead through this period, to have a team which is so bought into what you're doing here.
You see the benefit of that now in these moments of crisis more than even normal. It's no longer about, we hired a better person than we might have done. It's suddenly we stood by each other, and that's because they were people who believed in each other and believed in Blenheim. So I am sure that goes to the heart of how we've been able to sort of continue without really missing a beat in some areas, and that's been a huge comfort. And I'm sure, it's bound to be people who come through this crisis and they've had a life change moment, and then some people out there would have decided, I'm not going to work anymore, or I'm going to work in a completely different way, and that's great. But I think there's an awful lot more who've said, it was all very well being at Blenheim when everything was rosy, but I've actually learnt more about how much how strongly I feel about Blenheim and what it's up to through this crisis. So we will stay longer. And I think it's even showed in the way we have been able to hire. We've had to hire some people through the lockdown, and they've come into this very strange environment where you come in on your first day and you meet nobody. You know, it's all video. But the way they have been welcomed and brought in, and we've kind of got past that whole weird thing. It's really difficult in theory to build all the network connections you need as a new employee who's going to work right across the estate. It's really difficult to do that when you can see so few of them sometimes. But everyone's made a huge effort to connect with them. And so while I'm sure we will lose one or two people who've had a kind of like a life change moment and they've chosen to do something else, I think our staff base is strengthened by all that's gone on, and people probably feel more engaged and more emotionally attached to Blenheim and what we do than they ever did. And when I hear things like Lorna and Alan talking, that's truly humbling. And people here will tell you, in fact they would tell you, they may have done, I've not seen the video, we do wear our hearts in our sleeve here. We're passionate about what we do, and there's been a couple of recorded videos where I've kind of been quite welled up at either my concern for everybody or my kind of the fact I'm in awe of the support they're giving us. And that's the biggest emotional response I've had to what's going on is moments when I've just looked a whole bunch of people in the face on Zoom and just can't believe I'm surrounded by these people.
Do you think it helps that Blenheim's got that family feel about it?
Yes, but I think it's no accident. I'm not saying we deliberately created it, but maybe over time we attracted people who valued that kind of connection. We've got an awful lot of people who've been here for a long time, but they're not kind of old fogies who have seen it all before. They're the people who are most excited about training apprentices and putting their arms around apprentices and then discovering. Remember one of our chefs discovering that a couple of our young apprentices living away from home for the first time didn't know how to cook. Like, I'd just never come across this, and then they were being taught how to cook properly. And given lessons in budget. Remember Megan giving them lessons in budget management, because some of them had just never had to manage their own money before. And so that creates that kind of mother-father thing that goes on. And I think every step we take together reinforces that family ethos, and we talk about ourselves as families, not as employees. That's the way we see each other.
So do you think when you next put a job advert in the paper, it will just say whatever comes along? You'll be specific on a role.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. We have a bunch of projects that we've just signed off with our trustees. We're going to invest right through the winter on a whole bunch of things that will divert employees who are kind of not critically needed in their current roles over the next 8 months, we believe, because of business volumes being down, because maybe their bit of the business we expect to be almost closed down for a bit. And we are moving those people into a whole range of things, building new exhibitions, working out in the community, helping with energy management. And so more and more we're going to really get people to do whatever comes along. And we've restructured both the visitor attraction teams and the estate looking after the landscape teams so that they will do within their extended groups whatever comes along, rather than being a gamekeeper versus a shepherd versus a gardener versus a forester. They will do. So maybe we'll certainly be hiring for that. I think we'll be looking for people who are ready to turn their hands to anything far more, because it isn't just an attitude thing anymore. We really will have a great place for people who, in the morning, can turn their hands to whatever needs doing.
Just a head of job swap coordination, maybe.
Oh, actually, I'll have to get Megan onto that role.
We did look at that actually at one point, where we could maybe help people swap roles in this is all pre-lockdown, just to get an experience in a different role, whether it's cleaning out the rhinos at Cotswold Wildlife Park or something. Must admit, one of the LinkedIn posts that stood out most for me during lockdown was a lady that works at a local hotel, and she posted that she'd been on furlough for a good 2 or 3 months, and she was invited back in, but not as an events coordinator, but to clean the toilets and just be a maid, basically.
I saw it. Isn't that inspiring?
And it was incredible. And do you know what? The funny thing was, she got like 12,000 views. It was a ridiculous number of views. And the ironic thing was her husband is a communications expert, Rob Panting at Oxley. I've completely outed you now, Rob. And he was completely envious of the whole, the impact that tweet, that LinkedIn post had. But that summed up quite a lot of people's own thoughts. I think just getting back to work and doing whatever she could.
And that will have transformed the way she is viewed in her organisation. It'll be one of those corporate legends that people will talk about in 5 or 10 years' time. And isn't that great? Because we have had these issues, particularly when people were on furlough and some people were here. The people here were working really, really hard. And for all their positivity and passion for the place, when they were exhausted, sometimes they did think, I wish I was being paid to stay at home. It sounds like a holiday. I'm really working. I'm exhausted. And yet, at the same time, you had people at home on furlough saying, I would seriously pay to get back to Blenheim and do just about anything to help. And so you have this sort of misunderstanding between them both. And it's when Rob's wife went back to clean bedrooms. So those are those breakthrough moments, and it happened here. We had similar things here, people doing all sorts of other jobs. I'm not saying they love those jobs, but they loved the fact they were contributing, and they will always feel part. And those, when Joe went to work on the gates, my assistant, for example, the teams on the gates will always remember that, and they'll always greet her differently because she worked alongside them.
You mentioned earlier on about how the London law firm sort of have given up this time to look after their team. To adjust the balance, we did a lot of work with our friends at Freese locally, speaking to a lot of their staff and how they're coping with lockdown. And they're certainly saying, the communication between the various departments and teams has increased significantly. And those water cooler moments where you just grab somebody for 2 minutes before you went into a meeting, which might not have been convenient for them, but was convenient for you because you needed that information. They're gone now, but they're all replaced by structured meetings. So everybody's day is a lot more structured. They're getting a lot more out of each other. And talking to Leon Ireland, the head of corporate, he's saying he would normally, he was saying he'd do like a 2-week tour of the Northwest, or sort of Midlands North, and going north. And he said he can now do that by Monday lunchtime. And so all this time you're saying is now being given up. We've all unlocked a lot of time that we never had before through saving travel time. So, but
we've got to reinvest it in the right things.
Exactly,
I think it would be a terrible loss if actually we didn't have some of that down, relaxed time with each other, and that's the bit that we've struggled to replicate in quite the same way online, because you do occasionally feel a bit guilty about suddenly making a Teams call to someone just to say, hey, how's it going? And so, I don't know what the new normal looks like, but I do worry that particularly younger people coming into the workforce in their early years will not have the benefit of all the water cooler moments, which may be time consuming, and sometimes we couldn't place a true value on them, but we know they were valuable. So I'm not one of those who thinks, we'll all work from home. Having said that, I think there'll be an awful lot more home working, but I think you will end up with businesses organising very deliberate all-in sessions or all-in social sessions and trying to get groups in, almost scheduling, let's all be at work for this thing or for this day, just so that we do, and maybe have a session that absolutely is focused on creating water cooler moments, brainstorming, that kind of thing. And I look forward to that because I think I'm a people person, even though I'm an accountant. But in the sense that I get a lot of my energy from people. I struggle at home not having people around me. So I'm anxious to see some return to normal, even though I know I am more efficient at home. And as you say, so many of these meetings, the equivalent of the free tour of the Northern offices, we can now do trustees meetings that take 2 hours, including travel time, which doesn't exist anymore. That's a great boon to the future, but I'm anxious to rekindle water cooler moments too, and I'm interested in listening to some of the rest of today to hear what others have to say about that and how you do that. I'd love the idea of the shared exercise sessions, which I know one or two of our teams did, and I think I can see us doing that for the long run as well.
Fantastic.
Do you think that it's possible to get collaboration and innovation through Teams calls, or do you think you have to come together in order to get that?
It's you can absolutely do it through Teams calls. We as we locked down, we set up a series of, we called them Phoenix teams, who were multidisciplinary teams of people who were staying on, who had to spend a chunk of their day each day looking at a whole wave of projects, rationalising the way teams work, finding new efficiencies, finding new spaces to move into, etc., new office strategies. And that kind of brainstorming worked brilliantly, but of course you can't have, I think brainstorming online needs smaller numbers. When you're in a room of 20 people, you can sort of brainstorm with 20 because you can see each other, you can take in the looks on people's faces, the tone of their voice, everything very easily when it's physical. We found brainstorming with 4s and 5s was about as much as you could do on Teams, but that worked for us. And so yeah, there's a number of things that has to change when you go digital, but we found it to be a truly exciting period. And again, new relationships were built up because people could come from all over the organisation as a 5 or 6 to brainstorm, but there was no downtime in it. You know, if we're going to do it at 10 o'clock, everyone clicked in at 10 o'clock and shared notes on Teams and recorded videos so people could go back and look at the sessions, and it was fascinating and liberating.
Don, really appreciate your time. I know you've got a busy day ahead, but hopefully you're going to be watching us like you did for Bio. I think you are ever present.
I loved Bio. I have to say, yeah, anyone who says things can't be the same online, it's not quite the same, should have been at Bio. Bio, in some ways, was better. I certainly was able to attend a lot more. I think the way people supported from the sidelines was brilliant. I relished every moment. I got so much more from digital Bio. It's not to say next year I wouldn't be there physically for a day.
Well, that's it now. That's the end of it now.
I would still want to come physically for a day, but what I could then do, given the time commitments we all have, is attend most of the other days if the ticketing allows it. And, you know, there were a bunch of people from Blenheim who would love to have attended certain sessions, but we needed to find a way to get them to be able to experience just those sessions.
Well, they can all attend these. They're all open to everybody. So that's
we've been circulating the links.
Available. And Dom, Lorna mentioned in the video how it's important. You know, you've got a big job to do. You referenced the gamekeepers and the digital marketers. They haven't got anything in common. What they do have in common is a great leader. So Dom, really appreciate your support for us. You coming in this morning, and we're very lucky to have you, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of the day. So thank you.
I shall be watching a lot later. Thank you, and thank you for bringing this to Blenheim.
Pleasure. Well,
thanks for being you.